Yeah, tense would be an understatement. We believed George had got the pace to do that, to stay in front of the other cars, but we also knew that Piastri had a fair turn of speed.
Hi, I'm Jodie, and joining us today we have James Allison for the Akkodis race debrief to answer your questions for the Austrian Grand Prix. James, jumping straight in, we've got a little bit of an outfit change here, so what's the t-shirts all about?
These are our much vaunted winners t-shirts, so it's a pleasure to be wearing it. Really suits my complexion, and it's nice. The whole factory's got them on today, and it's a fun thing.
Yeah, walking in today, it was great to see everyone all teed up, and I do want to note as well that I had my nails done on Friday. Perfectly matched, so this is the thing going forward.
Okay, well, I've just bitten my nails all weekend, so
we won't zoom in then.
Not quite so beautiful.
So what does this win mean for the whole team?
I think it's it's a lovely thing. It's like a sort of Christmas present rather than a sort of traditional race win where you make your car get to the front on pure merit alone. But it's a great reward for a team that has been pushing very hard for a significant amount of time. We've been moving up the grid and getting ourselves from a place where we would have needed 3, maybe 4 people to have dropped out on top of the first 2 in order for this to happen, but getting ourselves in a place where we could be there to pick up these scraps. We're not where we want to be yet, but it's a fantastic shot in the arm for everybody here to have got this result.
So what did we change from sprint into quali to try and find a little bit more performance?
Really small things. We changed the rear wing level a little bit, changed the front flap angle just to try to get the car balance a little bit more where we would like it, changed the sort of approach to the qualifying session a little bit, tiny changes to the car, and you could see that the results in the main qualifying were not like night and day different to what we'd seen earlier in the weekend, but just the car a little bit more together, and the result okay.
Let's take a look at the race. Why did Lewis have to give back that position to Carlos instead of waiting to hear from the stewards to see that we had to?
I guess in short, he didn't have to. It was a question of judgment. We all saw the start of the race along with all the people who viewed it, and we saw the little tangle that Lewis and Carlos got into, with Lewis just being edged wide off the circuit, keeping it lit and getting ahead of Carlos. And immediately the question in all our minds, and Lewis's mind, is, was that place gained by leaving the track? Did I gain an advantage by leaving the track? You know in the back of your head that you get a little bit more leniency from the stewards sometimes in the first corner of the first lap of a race, but you can't rely on it. And you know that the consequences to you if you don't give the place back and the stewards rule against you is worse than just giving the place back. You get a 10-second penalty, and that's definitely worse than just allowing the place to be quietly returned in the opening laps of the race. So we did what we always do, which is you sort of get on the blower to the FIA and ask for a bit of guidance as to whether that looked a bit much to them. They did what they always do, which is to be as inscrutable as the Sphinx and say, well, that's up to you. You need to make your own judgment. And the more we looked at it, the more we thought we probably won't get away with this. And indeed, while we were thinking about it, we saw the messaging come up to say that the incident was being investigated. We were pretty sure was going to be the case. And we just thought the balance of risk was one where we're better to surrender that place. So we asked Lewis to do it. He knew the situation. He gave up the place without demur. He didn't even put up a breath of a fight on the radio, because he understands that balance of risk as well. And as things turned out, we're glad we did, because the stewards subsequently ruled in a way that made it pretty clear that had we pushed our luck, we would have ended up with the penalty.
So say if we had have gone for the other decision, how would that then have potentially affected Lewis's race?
Well, it would have been that 10 seconds of penalty to be served in the pits. giving back that place to Carlos, a place that we didn't earn legitimately at the start. That cost, a second or something like that. So 9 seconds of extra penalty to be served, and that could have had quite a significant impact later in the race. Now, as things turned out, with some of the floor damage to Lewis's car and the subsequent penalty he had for crossing the white line on pit entry, he could have served it and it wouldn't actually have made a world of difference. But early in the race, when everything was still possible, then it was clearly the right thing to do, to take the hit of going back behind Carlos, not incurring the wrath of the stewards, not getting a 10-second penalty, and fighting forward from that point.
Sure, and talking about the floor damage as well as side pod damage as well, how much would that have impacted the overall performance for Lewis?
Quite a chunk, yeah. He went over some gravel, it's very easy to do at that track. You just put a wheel half a tyre width wide and you can run it through some gravel, and that gravel gets ejected by the wheel like a sort of machine gun bullet, and it through that gravel, through the side pod, damaged a bunch of the carbon bodywork there, hurt the leading edges of the floor a little bit, and it was costing him upwards of 0.2 of a second a lap. So in a grid these days, which is really quite tight, you feel that strongly, and so no surprise that he wasn't able to stay with the pace of George in the race, but actually quite a creditable performance from him to keep focused on the task and to bring the car home in fourth place.
So staying with Lewis, why did we wait so long to put him onto the medium tyre?
It wasn't really so long. It was a slightly extended middle stint, and extending at a point where the tyres were definitely not at their best. And I guess that's the sort of thrust of the question. Why would you leave a car out on tyres that would definitely pass their best, and where the leaders were pulling away from him? Why would we do that? There's a couple of reasons for it. First of all, you've got to see it in the context of a race where Lewis had a big gap behind him. So he was not threatened from behind whatsoever. So the position he was going to finish in was pretty secure. And yet there was still opportunity ahead of him if things happened in the race to bring it to him, a safety car or something like that. So if a safety car had come out while he was still on his old, not so happy, not doing him any favours tyres, he would have got a really cheap stop. And that would have been a great thing, put him right back in the hunt on fresh rubber and able to really pester the cars in front of him. He would have been sitting really pretty. And even without a safety car, it presented him with significantly younger tyres in the last part of the race, tyres which, if anyone ahead of him got in any sort of difficulty, he would be able to come at them with a much larger performance delta by having these younger tyres. So it's the combination of having no threat from behind and therefore not risking anything by running on the older tyres, and a few things that may have, dice that rolled in his favour that he would have been able to exploit better if he were then on the younger tyres towards the end of the race. So that's why we did it.
Now, James, we talked about nails earlier and how you spent the weekend biting them down.
Yeah.
But what was the general feeling in those final 7 laps, waiting for George to cross that finish line?
Yeah, tense would be an understatement. We believed George had got the pace to do that, to stay in front of the other cars. But we also knew that Piastri had a fair turn of speed. We also had seen George not exactly flying on the hard tyre at the beginning of his stint, and we didn't know whether he was just sort of biding his time, saving his rubber, able to then push later on, or whether that was all he had to offer. And we were sort of trying to tease that out of him in the laps prior to Verstappen and Norris tangling, but obviously it became very real after they did, and George was in the lead, and then there was this insurgent Piastri behind, who looked like he had for a few laps had some significant pace, but happily George was able to lift the pace of the car. He did have pace in hand. We were able to see the car home safely, but for a few laps that was definitely chew them to the quick time on the nails, and a great relief when the car crossed the line in first place, and we heard George's yabba dabba doos or whatever it was he was saying over the radio.
So we're bang in the middle of a very busy run in the F1 calendar. F1 is coming home. We've got our home Grand Prix next at Silverstone.
Yeah.
So what are you most looking forward to?
There's loads of things to look forward to at Silverstone. It's a race where our whole factory gets to come to the track and be in the grandstands, cheer us on, which is, a great thing. There's a chunk of people in the team who've never been to a Grand Prix before, and to see the car at a circuit which is one of the classic circuits where I think Formula One cars always look fantastic at Silverstone through the Maggotts Beckett's complex, just doing what no other cars on the planet can do. So there's that level of enjoyment, knowing that it's going to be appreciated by so many of our teammates. But also it's a brilliant circuit which puts a lot of challenge on the car, and it's going to be interesting to find out whether we are able to continue the sort of progress that we've made race on race for the last handful of races, whether we can actually get a bit closer to that couple of cars that seem to just persistently be a couple of tenths ahead of us, and looking forward to see whether the small bits and pieces we're bringing to Silverstone allow us that sort of ongoing improvement. So yeah, loads of things to be looking forward to, and I can't wait for it.